Hello, BookTube. I recently made a request of you. I recently put it to you that if there's any kind of video that I can make for you that you might find interesting, you should sing out and let me know what it is, since we're all trapped inside. We're all cooped up in self-isolation, except for that handful of American states who want to be liberated to die in great heaps outside overpacked hospitals. If you're in one of those states, may the lords of Asgard have mercy on your soul, because your governors and your president are not. But one of the things that came up, one of the ideas that came up frequently, of course, top 10 lists and starter kits came up frequently. Also, there were a number of calls for me to resume Last Week in BookTube. Oh, do you want to see your friends? Here's the bean. Ooh. You should see sweet. Aren't you sweet? Huh? You are. You're the sweetest thing. You are. They love you. They like you more than they like me. The little people in this machine. They like you more than they like me. They think you're the cutest. The bee's knees. She's calming down and cooling off from we had a long walk that started off as a disaster because I went to a nearby park and it was mobbed with people. Which is bad enough. It was also mobbed with dogs. Which isn't so bad. Freda is not at all aggressive, but she is extremely bossy. she doesn't have any aggression towards other dogs at all. Won't bark at them, wouldn't bite them, does bark at them, but she screams at them. She's not barking out of aggression. She's barking to say, you're doing it wrong, you're walking wrong, how dare you, that sort of thing. High dudgeon barking. But she wouldn't bite another dog in a million years. And she's extremely bossy. I have learned from Schnauzer aficionados that they are that way. They tend to be that way anyway. But in addition to that, her whole life, the whole time that she's been alive, every dog that she has met, after about 20 or at the most 30 seconds, unless the dog has been tortured or abused in some way, but normal dogs, at 20, maybe 30 seconds at the outset, which is a short amount of time, but it's an eternity with two dogs who might get aggressive with each other. But even so, after about 20 or maybe 30 seconds, every single dog that she has ever met in her entire life has promptly offered submission. Now, a lot of times, especially when it's just done casually, when it's just done as an ordinary thing, I don't know that a human would be able to even see that it was happening. The thing that a human, I think, would probably want to watch for would be the disposition of the shoulders. A tidy dip in the shoulders, but you might not even see that. Some of it is chemical, so you wouldn't be able to sense it anyway. But every single dog that she encounters offers submission to her, and that just increases her Hanoverian tendencies. Her bossiness just increases because she thinks then that she can stand up on them and stare at them and order them to stand still while she examines them. And good luck telling her that they're not actually offering submission to her. They're offering it to me. But good luck telling her that that it's not offered to her. That is not going to get through, because 22, 23 billion dogs on Earth, there's only one anywhere on the surface of the planet who doesn't do that, and it's her. So she's never going to understand that. So that can be a little bit dicey because she's screaming at dogs left, right, and center. I don't command this dog. I don't order her to do anything at all. I've even refrained from giving her my normal. Ordinarily, I would give a dog a one-word command. I would take them out far away from other dogs or other people, other stimulus of any kind, and teach them in the course of an afternoon a one-word command. And I haven't even done that with this dog. I haven't dimmed or dented her will at all. I figure, why give her a one-word command when she's never going to be away from me, when we're going to spend all day, every day together? But even so, 20 or 30 seconds, like I said, can be a long time when it's a strange dog. You don't know how things are going to go. And a lot of people in the parks think that their dogs are perfectly okay to run off a leash, and they aren't. They aren't at all. And the only way that you should ever let your dog off a leash, especially in a relatively urban setting, especially with other people around, is if you have control over your dog that's verbal. If you don't have verbal control over your dog and you release yourself from physical control over your dog, then what are you doing? So, I've lost count of how many times in situations like that I have had to exercise verbal control over your dog because you are too dumb or too entitled or too clueless to realize the incredible tragedy that could result from your oversight. I've lost count of that. The only exception that I make for Freda, the only people that dogs that she can't boss around by my command, and I haven't dented her will. I've just made it known to her. I've made it known to her that I don't like it. And underneath her bossiness, she is an extremely accommodating little dog. You're an extremely accommodating little dog. Underneath her bossiness, she is willing to do what I say most of the time. And the only category of dog that I've told her, she has no interest in bossing around little puppies, little falling all over themselves puppies. She has no interest in them at all, and she has no interest in bossing them around. The only other category of dog that I've told her, look, this is off limits, don't do it, and she agrees, is very old dogs. She is not allowed to mouth off to very old dogs. As far as I'm concerned, a very old dog has earned the right to have everything be done for them, to have their ticket just be written right to the end. and whether or not Freda is predisposed to agree with me on that, she will do that. So, but we had a long walk anyway. I got her out of the park as soon as I realized that it was a mob scene. The only worry that I have today, it is not pitch dark in Boston today. It's not sleeting. It is not snowing. It is not freezing cold. It reached 60 degrees Fahrenheit today in Boston. And an hour-long walk with Freda in 60 degrees Fahrenheit brought her back here to Hyde Cottage, panting her head off. A quality that I've noticed about this dog for her whole life, I mentioned it, I'm sure, in early videos when she was just a little nugget, is that she's prone to overheating. I don't know whether or not that's true for terriers just in general, or for this kind of terrier just in general, but she has it worse than almost any other dog that I've ever known. I once upon a time had a beagle who was prone to fat. He was a little bit on the roly-poly side no matter what I did, no matter how I restricted his diet, no matter how many exercises, how many walks we went on. He was just a little bit on the roly-poly side. He was adorable, and he was prone to overheating. But this dog, the slightest thing does it. I don't know what that is. That has me thinking about the summer, which theoretically will eventually come to Bossy. And when it does, I don't know what. I guess I've got through 3 summers so far. So, but anyway, as I was saying before that enormous interruption, I put out the word of things that you want me to do on this channel, and I'm mulling over a whole bunch of them. A lot of you said last week in BookTube, for instance, you'd love to see a return of that, and or quite a few of you said, okay, last week in BookTube is good, but how about last week in YouTube, where you look at a much broader palette of YouTube and tell us about what that is, since a lot of you have things to do. You can't just watch YouTube all day long. And quite a few of you could not hide your willingness to watch me rip apart some popular channels on BookTube as the obvious grifting frauds that they are. I don't know. I'm still mulling a lot of those, but one idea that came up a lot was people saying, you have had mail hauls for all the time that you've been doing this, and now it seems like the mail hauls have stopped. Wouldn't this be a good time for you to go back and tell us about those books? One of the fun parts of mail hauls on this channel was that I was often encountering the book for the first time just the same as you were. So I got to give you my first impressions, maybe a little bit about the subject or about the author, and then we would just learn about the book together. And I would often say, I will check back with you, but I very seldom do. I think part of me just automatically left the checking back, the evaluating of the books, for print reviews. An old reflex of mine that I have not been able to shake. I do not do book reviews on this channel. I don't know why, but quite a few of you suggested, well, could you go back into those mail hauls and tell us about the books? Tell us what you ended up thinking about the books in those mail hauls. There have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I thought that was a good idea, but I thought, I don't know how to go through my back catalog, and I don't know what would be of interest and what wouldn't. And I realized, I could just tell you to do that. You send me links. Send me the link to a mail haul that you want me to go over, and I'll gladly do that. And that has worked. that has worked and is still working. I'm getting lots and lots of those, and I welcome you to do more. My email is right down below. Feel free to pick a mail haul and set me to it. but quite a few of the emails that I've been getting have been from people who don't comment on my videos. They don't have BookTube channels of their own. They don't even watch my channel, except I thought they didn't. Apparently they do. Quite a few old friends, a lot of fellow book critics that have I guess these things have just been percolating, and they like this idea. So I want to burn through a few of those before I get to before I start doing all of the suggestions that you're making. So that I'm creating a backlog. That's okay. I thought about doing these once a week on Throwback Thursday, because they are kind of throwbacks. I'm doing throwback reviews, TBRs of my TBRs, because my mail-alls were often TBRs. They always were. I read everything I'm sent. So I thought these TBR-TBRs would be for Thursday. But then I heard from a number of people. First, a number of well-known troublemakers on this channel. But then lots of other people saying, what? You're only going to do this once a week? Do this more often than once a week. So I don't know. I'm still working out the bugs of how to do it at all. Obviously, these videos will not all start with a 10-minute throat clearing about my dog. but so I'm going to do another one today. Another one from an old friend of mine. I know right now 4 people who would qualify as old salts. People, in other words, like myself, who've spent an enormous amount of time on Earth's oceans in one capacity or another. And it turns out that all 4 of the old salts that I know all spent time on the Earth's oceans in different capacities. Or go figure. We don't gravitate towards each other, I don't think. But the old salt, like my friend last time, who didn't want to be identified in front of all of you. I don't know why. You're all lovely people, with a couple of well-known exceptions. But like that old friend, this old friend does not want to be identified. I don't imagine that any booktuber is not going to want to be identified, but these people aren't on booktube. They think it's a little strange that I am. And the old friend that sent me the link today is a very old salt, the oldest salt of all, he's a Navy dog, who rose in the ranks in the Navy to very nearly the level of command of someone in this video. And has been a friend of mine for a long, long time. We've shared many an anecdote over drinks. I was going to say over wine, but of course he doesn't drink wine. He drinks hard liquor. And I have never seen the appeal of hard liquor. Never. I'm sorry, I know a lot of you are fans of it, but I've never seen the appeal of downing paint stripper that's going to rip apart your throat just to get a little more bang for your buck. Now, wine is fine by me, but we've shared many an anecdote late into the evening, many a memory of storms in the North Atlantic or tropical ports of call, and also he overrode my objection and paid me once upon a time an obscene amount of money to design and stock a library of his at his house on the Chesapeake. So we go way back, and he suggested a video and sent me the link to it, which was a huge technological challenge of his. I'm sure he didn't do it. His brainiac daughter did. Just like his brainiac daughter's the only one who's ever read any of those books that are in that library on the Chesapeake. And I know why he sent me this. I know there's only one book on this list that he even cares about. He just wants to hear about it. That's all. But I'm going to do them all. So there are 4 books. This is from the 22nd of April in 2016. And the first book is 60 Degrees of North by Maliki Talik, who went around the world above the 60th parallel in Finland and northern Canada. He just sort of is travel writing, where he toured some of the coldest and least hospitable places in the world up in parallel, up in a range of motion around the globe that I know very well. I have spent a lot of time, especially in northern Canada, far away from civilization, with only my dogs and no real provender, just sort of living in the woods, hiking and tracking in the woods forever, just for long stretches at a time, away from any kind of support system, which led to a lot of positive memories. I have a lot of glowing memories, and also, if any of you who might be a little bit familiar with northern Canada, it also led to my attitude towards bears, okay, especially grizzly bears. So when I go off on a bear tangent, which I'm not going to do today, kindly, if you think that I'm being harsh on the poor little teddy bears, kindly zip it. I have encountered them in places where you have not, and they are nothing you want to encounter, since they weigh a ton and have linoleum knives for fingernails, and they're always in a bad mood. Unlike black bears, grizzly bears are always in a bad mood. I said I wouldn't go on a rant. And I liked 60 Degrees of North. I don't think in this original video that I'd already read it. I liked it. It was amiable. It was clearly designed to be all things to all people. It's sort of a friendly travel log. So I could recommend it. There was nothing in it that was truly memorable writing. There was no great prose. But if you're interested in that area of the world, I mean, a lot of people like travel writing specifically because they know they're never going to go there. So it's armchair travel. And if you're interested in that, this is not a bad choice at all. And then the next book is Admiral Bill Halsey by Thomas Alexander Hughes, which was, as far as I know, the only full-length, exhaustive biography of one of the great admirals of World War II. And it's a brilliant book. I believe I'd already read it when I made this video in 2016. I think I'd read it, the review copy, but I had not yet read the finished copy, which is a lot of times when I make my firmer decisions about what a book does right and does wrong. And one of the qualities about this book that struck me even more the second time, and that has lingered in my mind even though I no longer have the book, the person who requested this video has my copy of the finished copy. One of the things that struck me about it even more the second time that I read it was the beauty of the prose. It really strong, good, intelligent prose. Really good with a kind of clean, austere, great way of putting things. It really reminded me of Samuel Eliot Morison, the prose did, where the prose was so good on its own that halfway through the book I was thinking, okay, well, I'm interested in this subject, even though I'm no fan of the subject. I'm interested in this subject, but I wouldn't need to be to read you. I would read you on anything. So that was the second book. It was nonfiction, it was a biography. Then we have a novel called The Throwback Special by Chris Batchelder, which is, he's the author of Bear versus Shark, and I think he's done another novel since The Throwback Special. The Throwback Special is about a group of friends who get together every year to reenact the November 1985 football game in which Joe Theismann's leg was mangled on national TV. And you can, I don't advise it, but if you're strong of stomach, you can look up pictures of what that looked like, and it's just unbelievable. And the book is smart, it's witty. If you like sports-oriented, that gasping that you hear is my little dog. She's going nuts in the background. Why? I don't know. Why are you going nuts? I'm trying to make a video. I'm talking to my imaginary friends on BookTube, and you're going crazy. Why? Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't even remember where I was. I don't just in general remember where I was before this little dog entered my life. Oh right. Yes, The Throwback Special. It's very good for sports-oriented fiction. It's lighthearted, but it in the third act it has fairly deeper bits to it as the characters grow and change just a bit. So there are paybacks. There are payoffs to reading it. A lot of times sports-oriented fiction doesn't really give those payoffs, or the payoffs are extremely predictable. It's just someone who's seen Field of Dreams too many times. And there's a bit of that in The Throwback Special, but the author redeems it with sincerity. So once again, I mean, I'm not sure that I would tell you to rush out and get it unless you are a big fan of sports-related fiction. If, for instance, you read Chad Harbach's novel, which is a truly great example of sports-related fiction. But it doesn't have to be that. There are plenty of others. I would argue that in a way, even Shoeless Joe is a really good example of sports fiction. You'll know what I mean by sports fiction. It's hard for people to do it right. And some of them do. There's one author in particular I'm thinking of for baseball who does it great and who is not well known anymore. You Know Me, Al. Would be one of his great books, but there are plenty of others. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you like that sort of thing, if you like sports-related fiction, this is something that you will like. I'm not going to call it great, but it'd be well worth your time. And the same thing is true with the last book, the last of the four, How to Party with an Infant by Kuai Hart Hemmings, which is extremely wittily written, but slight. I mean, you're definitely in the presence of an author who knows how to tell a story, and you will enjoy it. You absolutely will enjoy it. especially the as a portrait of young parenthood. That's a kind of thing that's difficult to do well. There was a famous example of a book a few years ago that did it very poorly, but it's usually done poorly, I think. And this case was not. A bright light of humanism, of human love, shines through those parts of the book. Like most contemporary fiction, it falls apart completely. The third act is an absolute mess. If for instance, the throwback special didn't have the hard and fast pattern of sports fiction and the redemption arc, then it would have fallen apart too. I feel certain that it would have. None of these people know how to end a book. And there is no such pattern for How to Party with an Infant, so it just falls apart like a bad souffle. But tasty. So there you go. Those are the four. Two fiction and two nonfiction. And as with all these TBR-TBRs, I'm going to end with the bean of the batch, the best book. And of course, as my old friend knew, it's Admiral Bull Halsey, which is a great book. It is a great biography, and it wouldn't be if it were just the first comprehensive biography of this undeniably important, if odious man. It wouldn't be important just on that. It's important because of how it's done. It's executed with genuine eloquence that would recommend it even if it were the 50th book on Bull Halsey. So I strongly recommend it as an example of biography. I strongly recommend it as a keyhole study of World War II, especially the Pacific Theater, the naval war. And if you are a World War II completist or a World War II aficionado, if you have a wall of books in your house that's all World War II, so you have all the general histories, you have tons of specific histories and targeted biographies and FDR and Hirohito and all that sort of stuff, all the great literature that the war in general has inspired. Two things. One, you must send me pictures of that collection. You have no excuse. You have a phone, you know how to take pictures, and my email is on every video. So you must send me pictures. In fact, it wouldn't kill the rest of you to send me pictures of your library just in general. You're already well trained, because most people who send me email, I get about 80 emails a day from you all. That's a very small number compared to the number of people who subscribe, so that number could stand to go up. but of those 80 emails that I get a day, quite a few of them have gratuitous dog pictures just designed to please me. But I could stand more pictures of libraries. Ooh, absolutely I could. But if you are a person like that and you have a World War II collection, like, for instance, the old friend who asked for this video, who has just such a wall at the house on Chesapeake and has not been touched. But in his own defense, he also has 4 or 5 walls like that in his actual house. And those books are pulled down all the time. It's all he can read. It's all he wants to read anymore. That's okay. Because as I've mentioned many times before, World War II in its whole breadth is a lifetime subject. It is an unbelievably vital, interesting, and important subject. So I of course, would consider it a punishment if you limited my reading to one subject. But if you're going to pick a subject, good Lord, you could spend your whole life reading about World War II. And as long as you don't get pigeonholed, as long as you don't have 50 books on one battalion, as long as you're reading about the whole war and all sorts of studies about it, you could profitably spend your life doing that. And this old friend has done that. And if you are such a reader, you absolutely have to have this book. You absolutely have to have Admiral Bill Halsey by Thomas Alexander Hughes. You absolutely have to have that. So that is the bean of the batch this time around. And that is another TBR-TBR. This one for 22 April of 2016. There's quite a few of these more to go. I don't want to do one every day. Do I? Do you want me to do these every day? You don't. Of course you don't. No, I'm thinking on Thursday. Thursday is Throwback Thursday. Don't... Anyway. I'm not going to open the door to more bullying. You people bully me all the time. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. There's just 4 books, and we will do this again. I will certainly do it on Thursday. If I hear howls of outrage, I'll do it before. So feel free to send me your recommendations. I will wrap this up, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.